Hi, my name is Monica Kretschmer, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Universal Women's Network, Woman of Inspiration Awards, and this is the Woman of Inspiration podcast, where we speak with women who lead, inspire, and motivate. Today is a great episode, and I'm sure you're going to absolutely love it. My guest today is Fatima Israel. She is the Chief Marketing Officer of EY Canada. She's also a 2021 Woman of Inspiration Authentic Leader. Fatima is grounded in business to human approach. She is an advocate for putting people at the heart of transformation to drive innovation, catalyze progress, and deliver on purpose. As EY Canada's Chief Marketing Officer and a member of the Canadian leadership team, Fatima is reimagining the brand and customer experience through digital acceleration, market-leading campaigns, memorable moments, and compelling narratives. She boldly blends ambitious ideas with insights to show how the firm is building a better working world for its people, clients, and communities. So Fatima, welcome. You are bringing 20 years of experience to the conversation today. So where I'd love to start with is, where did you start? I mean, let's go way back here. What did you want to be when you were a little girl?
So I remember as a child, anytime anyone would ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I would always say that I wanted to be a lawyer. I think I was drawn to the possibilities of one day fighting for others and seeing justice through. But also, as I think about myself, I also love formulating arguments and looking at facts from multiple angles, which is still really true today. My dad actually used to take me to the local court so I could see court cases in motion as well. So really and truly, I thought I was going to become a lawyer. But something changed along the way, and I fell really deeply in love with both the art and science of marketing, which became my true calling and has led the last 20 years of my life.
So I have so many conversations with women, and it's never a straight path. It is always a little bit of zigzagging along the way. So maybe, there's lots of women listening to this podcast, and they're at a point of transformation or pivoting themselves in their careers. So maybe you can talk about that path that led you to your current role and some of the opportunities that you took on getting there.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. No journey is ever linear. And I also think if it was linear, it wouldn't be really fun. There's a lot that, we see along the way, the twists and turns that make us who we are and the journey that we're on. So I personally love the fact that it isn't linear, because everything being expected wouldn't truly be exploration. So my career journey has definitely been a bunch of twists and turns. However, it's always been in marketing across various different areas. And my background, while my foreground has been in marketing, my background is also in management and economics and strategy. So it's bringing all of that together, which is why I like to call marketing both an art and a science. So when I actually graduated university, I first joined a fintech startup. And it was way back in the days before fintech was actually an industry, or before fintech was fintech. And the organization I was part of at that point was about 150 employees. It was edging beyond infancy with really bold global ambitions for growth. And for someone new like me to the professional world, the entrepreneurial environment was truly life-changing. I got to wear many hats every single day. One day I was working on an event. Next day I was working on a new website, a campaign, doing a whole bunch of things, even outside of marketing, I'd say. But I really got to feel the firsthand impact of the ups and downs of business cycles. And so, taking a step away from marketing, that's the reality. That's the reality that we face every day. And I got a taste of that really early in my career. And I always say to those that I'm mentoring or those who are just starting their career journey, at some point work for a small business or an SMB. You just get a really different perspective on business that carries you through your life. So I certainly, through that experience, learned a lot, including the importance of seizing unexpected opportunities, because every day was different, teaming and the importance of people, and the idea that a rising tide lifts all boats. So you're not alone, and when we work together, we can truly go further. I then shifted gears and I did a short stint in professional services and eventually moved to progressively senior leadership roles at TELUS, where I was for 12 years. During my time at TELUS, I also dual hatted as a small business owner for a few years, which was really exciting and interesting. And now I'm in the role, as you mentioned, as Chief Marketing Officer at EY Canada. But I've always stayed true to those values around people saying yes and figuring out how later and working together. So for me, every day is a new chance, regardless of whether it's what expected or not, but a chance to propel one another's progress and really see if we're driving impact, which aligns with my personal purpose of making a difference and leaving things better than when received.
So you talk about opportunities, and I'm gonna just kind of go a layer deeper on that is, how did you know when it was time to pivot? Because that's a question that I have when they see women, carving their career paths and their journeys. But what can you share when you knew that it was time to make that next move?
For me, I'm a learner and I love learning. And I think as long as I'm in an environment where I'm learning, I'm good. I was at a point where I'd done almost every role, every industry, different things. So it was time to start something new. And it's never about like, I think there's opportunity in learning everywhere that you look. It's how you define it or how you necessarily want to learn and grow. But generally, because of my mindset and because I'm such a learner, I'm usually looking for an opportunity to work in the gray zone, to do something that hasn't been done before. I found comfort in stepping out of my comfort zone. And I know that's sort of a natural in many cases, but I truly love that. And so I'm always seeking what that might be.
And so that actually leads into the next question of, what one piece of wisdom can you share with the young women today?
Okay, my best advice is to be you. I do find that so often the world tries to change who you are, or you'll get feedback and you need to figure out, do I want to take this feedback or not? I really think it's important to be you because everyone else is taken. And you need to stay true to yourself, stay true to your values, be proud of who you are, lean into your strengths, and celebrate your differences. If we were all the same, life would not be exciting. There's truly power in embracing your authenticity and uniqueness, and freedom, really and truly freedom, in walking without the weight of the world on your shoulders. So, my best advice is never dim your light, let it shine bright. And if you're different, that's even better.
Beautiful. I love that. It's so empowering. And I think we often forget that. We forget that we each have a lived experience and we have something to offer to the world that nobody else does. So my
Exactly. And I
next,
think sorry, Monica, if I can just add, I think we all get a lot of advice, as I mentioned, through our careers, and some of it can be conflicting. So for me, I know, I've heard you're too nice, you're too direct, you're too serious, you're not serious enough. Like, depending on the instance, you have to really step back sometimes and listen. Feedback is amazing. Some of it can be super valuable. But sometimes it'll try to change who you are, and you need to determine, are you comfortable with that change or not? And for me, I'll tell you, one of my non-negotiables in that area was earlier in my career, I think I was just becoming a manager. One of the pieces of feedback I'd received from a leader at that time was, Fatima, you say please and thank you too much. And it makes you seem more junior than you are. You're in an elevated role, you need to be taken seriously. For me, that was one of my non-negotiables because for me, it was manners. It was how I was raised to treat everyone from the cleaning staff to the CEO exactly with the same amount of respect and kindness. And I wasn't willing to change that. So I'm sure today still I overuse please and thank you, but I feel good about it.
That's a great example. I am actually on board with you about the common courtesies, because in a world where it's so abrupt sometimes, I
Right.
find that please and thank you is really needed. So thank you for paving the road on that end, Fatima. So I'm going to talk about some of the challenges. It's inevitable that we, face challenges and barriers in our careers and as leaders. So how do you approach, when you come up against those challenges? How do you move past it? Do you have a strategy?
Well, I think the reality is we're all going to face challenges and it's inevitable, but it's how we deal with it and what we come out of it. That's what really, really matters. I faced a ton of challenges. Just the examples that I shared around advice that you get. I think those are challenges in itself. Sometimes, I can often be underestimated as well. That's one of the challenges I often face. And I don't know if you can tell, but I have pinkish purple hair. I'm coincidentally wearing a frilly top today. You can walk in an executive boardroom and, have some eyebrows raised around what's this person doing here, or they just don't know you. And it takes a moment. But I don't mind. I actually found at the beginning I was underestimated. I felt like, okay, I need to prove myself or I need to show who I am. But I learned to love that. I would rather be seen as the underdog and you get to under promise and over deliver than come in with almost, certain expectations. So it's the glass half full mentality on the challenge. And I think we all face it. But for me, it would mostly be underestimating because I smile a lot. Please, thank you, frills. I'm generally not always very serious. I can be personable, and that might not be the expectation of someone in a C-suite role. And that's okay. It might work for some, it might not work for others. But I think at the end of the day, I am who I am.
Well, I think the authenticity, and I know we talked a little bit about that in the green room, is something that we can do more of, and share the opportunities to be authentic and to be transparent, right? I think there's a quote that why try to be everybody else to everybody else? I mean, just be yourself. And so I'm really happy to see you enforcing that as a leader in the C-suite, because we need more leaders like yourself to do that. So thank you so much. Now, I have another question. I know that I have a roster of women that inspire me, and I look to their leadership, and I look to how they what they do in their business and their career paths and journeys. But I'd like to talk about the women and the leaders that inspire you most.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very timely to what we're talking about. I really admire female leaders who are fearless in their pursuit of challenging the status quo and who are successful regardless of the odds against them, because I do think we all have odds against us. So the ones who truly inspire me are the ones who blaze new trails, who send the elevator back down for new female leaders, the ones who believe in collective team wins, advocate for the greater good, and create opportunities for others, even when it's really difficult, or even when you have to put yourself out there to help others. Leadership truly isn't easy, and especially as a woman, it isn't, but it's a gift. And those that I admire really remain authentic through it all and believe in making the impossible possible.
And so, I'm sure that you received a ton of advice over the years. So maybe you can share a little bit of the best advice that you have received from some of these incredible leaders.
I think I've sort of shared it. I'd say be you because everyone else is taken. I think it's so important, and you're probably seeing a thread in a lot of my responses, and really needing to stay true to who you are, because I don't think we see that every day. I think one of the things that I see in the corporate world quite often is different personas. And for me, I've always committed to wanting to be who I am where I am. So the worst thing for me would be my daughter coming to work with me and listening to me with my team and leaders and saying, I don't even recognize that person. Or my mom coming to work and seeing the exact same thing and saying, who is this woman? Because that's not who I raised. And vice versa. If my team was to come home and see me interacting with my family, they'd be like, yeah, she's exactly the same at work. So for me, that's just a value that I hold really, really true. So I'd say be you, feel proud of who you are, and continue to relish that. And I truly think the privilege of a lifetime is to be authentically, unapologetically yourself. And it's really, really difficult. But over time, with experience, and for me, that was somewhere in the mid 30s after I'd had my children, I was like, okay, I am who I am, and you're either going to love it or not. And I'm always going to be kind and I'm going to do my best, but I know I can't please everyone. And so I took that weight off of my own shoulders of feeling the need to please everyone or worrying about what they're thinking. I think as long as you're coming from a really good place, that's what matters. And you need to have good intentions.
Great advice, Fatima. And I think that's a really nice segue into, the support that we need. We need to learn more from leaders like yourself, but tell us about some support hers and the role that they play that have championed you along the way.
I think support hers are so critical to who we are. And support hers means both men and women. It's not just women, because I think at least I have a lot of men in my life who have been mentors, champions, advocates, and who have really helped me on the journey. So in my view, support hers are a little bit like a personal board of directors that I lean into quite a lot. And it's a combination of former bosses, past and present colleagues, business leaders, community members, close friends who individually offer guidance, upliftment, and diverse perspectives. And I think that each situation calls for something different. And then they're a bit of a village, if you will, and we need to build our own village. So I will go to certain people when I need to be built up because I'm having a difficult day. And I'll go to different individuals who I need to be grounded because maybe I'm getting a little out of hand and I need to be brought back down to earth, or I need someone to keep it real for me. I think we need different things in different moments, and as support hers, our personal board of directors, our support system is very important. And it also includes family. I think family is always there. They're on your side, and they help ensure that no goal is ever out of reach. And when you're feeling down or you're doubting anything, I think they're certainly there to push you along.
Beautiful. And so support is really important. We talked about career path and journeys, but let's talk about switching gears a little bit and talk about why it's so important to celebrate the achievements of women.
Well, I think we need to be our own advocate, and platforms like this are a perfect way in which to do so. So thank you, Monica, for this platform, for the whole Women of Inspiration program. I think there's so much value to it. Elevating the voices, stories, experiences, and achievements of women, it helps us be heard, seen, and celebrated. And I think by doing so, we're also sending that elevator back down and inspiring a new generation of change makers and leaders to push the boundaries of innovation, business, and society. I think if you can't see it, or if you don't know about these achievements, it's hard to really have that be a goal. And if we think about the question that we started with, where you said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, a lawyer. I think whatever, children today, if I ask my own children, what do you want to be when they grow up? They're still saying things like, I want to be a pediatrician. I want to be this. But my younger daughter will tell you, I want to be a WNBA athlete who's paid the same as an NBA athlete. And I think that's a lofty goal. We know we're certainly not there yet. But I think there's a lot of potential, and they need to see other women in those roles and able to dream of where they can go.
Beautiful. And so my next question to you is that is not a comfortable thing for most of us to do. And so it's setting the example like you're doing right now, that you're saying it's okay to step into the spotlight. So what advice would you give to women to really own that spotlight and be okay with celebrating and taking up space to own your milestones and successes?
Well, my view is, why not? So if you're not going to step into the spotlight, someone else will. And I'm an introvert, actually. So stepping into the spotlight isn't comfortable for me. with having very social children and through my career, like you would rarely ever be able to tell that I'm an introvert, but I wouldn't mind being at home for a week reading a book by myself. I'd be super happy as well. So, I really think of, if not you, it will be someone else. What's holding you back? Why not take that moment? You can set an example for others, and it's going to be uncomfortable. It always is. Anything new, anything difficult, it is uncomfortable, but that's where it starts. That's how you begin to build comfort out of it.
Well said. Step out of the uncomfortable zone and just keep learning and be curious. I think that you referenced that before. Now,
Yeah, just one more point I'd add on that is you learn a lot more from trying and it not working than you do from trying and it working, right? So as you kind of sparked that, as you said, the learnings are key, and you get better and it gets easier every single time. So seize the moment would be the advice there.
seize the moment and take the opportunities, even if they're uncomfortable.
Correct. And be you while doing it.
Perfect. So I know that you and I talked a little bit in the green room, and we talked about, what are some of your self-care non-negotiables. And, when we look to leaders that we aspire to be, or that we look up to, I think there's some discipline in their leadership on a daily basis. So maybe you can share a couple of those non-negotiables for you that might help inspire the next generation of leaders.
Yeah, I kind of gave it away that I'm an introvert. So
I'll just get you to rephrase that question again. We had a little bit of a pause there. So, so what are some of those non-negotiables for you?
Yeah, I sort of gave it away by just mentioning that I'm a bit of an introvert. So maybe some of those self-care elements won't be as surprising. But for me, I'm a huge reader, and I find reading very, very therapeutic. So this year, as an example, I made a goal of reading 52 books in 52 weeks. And I had sort of lost that love of reading. I was a huge reader as a child, got really busy, hadn't read for a while, and heard this great advice at the end of last year saying, when you make your New Year's resolution, do something that you're going to be really excited by. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to get back to the love of reading. And it has brought me so much joy because, well, first of all, it has to be a physical book. I have to literally be flipping the pages, because that way it feels different for me from work, because I'm always on my computer, I'm always on my phone. So then a book feels like a different experience. I've learned a ton. I've really been able to relax and get lost in a great book, both fiction and nonfiction. And I'm really proud to say we still have a couple of months in the year, but I've already read 56. So I'm ahead of the goal, which is amazing. And I think next year it's not going to be a goal. It's just going to be part of who I am, and I'll continue carrying it forward.
That's incredible. So I have to ask, what are some of your favorite titles that you can share that you've read that you've really enjoyed in this past 50? You've got 56 to choose from so far. So maybe you can share a couple of your best reads.
For sure. So on the learning side, one of the ones I'm always excited about is Never Split the Difference. It's about negotiation, but it's told by the angle of a hostage negotiator, where every negotiation was life stakes. I'm a huge Disney fan, so I actually love the memoir by Robert Iger on the Ride of a Lifetime.
Mm.
And there's a ton of other books that I love that are, fiction that my daughter and I both enjoy, but maybe I won't cover those here.
Beautiful. Well, I'd love you to share that list with me, because I'd be really interested to see some of those choices, and maybe we can share those afterwards as well.
I
So
absolutely will.
super great. Wow, that's pretty incredible. And I have to say that I think that's going to be part of my New Year's resolution for 2024, is to dive in and take some of those good read picks that you can recommend and dive into them. So
perfect. And then you can share some back with me, because sometimes you're always trying to figure out, like, what am I going to read next, right? And you need those recos.
absolutely. I've got a couple favorites for you, of course, that I would be happy to share.
Love it.
So, we're winding up to the end of our podcast, and I have to say, I am inspired by you. You're an amazing leader, and you're so open with your wisdom, and I really truly appreciate you being so authentic in your conversations today. So, as we wrap up, there's a couple questions. So, number one is there anything that you want to share with the audience today that you just really want to reinforce a message? Whether it's a lesson, words of wisdom, advice, what would you like to share with our audience? And then number two is I'd love to hear about what your definition of a woman of inspiration is. So we'll start with any last final comments, words of wisdom, advice that you would like to share with our audience today.
Yeah, one of the questions I often get asked is, being a CMO, having 3 children, being a wife, a daughter, mentor, like there's a lot of things that go on in life. As women, I often get asked, can you have your cake and eat it too? And my answer to that, I don't know if it's surprising, is always yes. I absolutely think you can have your cake and eat it too. There's going to be sacrifices along the way because we each play so many different roles in our daily lives. And so I'll give you an example. I know that if I go on a business trip, I'm going to miss a few basketball practices for my children. And that's okay as long as I make their games. And on the flip side, if my daughter is graduating and there's a really important meeting that's happening and I'm going to be missing that, you always feel like you're going to be letting someone down. But it's a choice that you make. And I think once you make the choice, you live with the choice and you don't rethink the choice and you don't feel guilty about the choice. That's really hard to do because we tend to feel guilty. So I truly think you can have your cake and eat it too. Be happy, be in the moment, and be the best that you can be in every environment. So I hope that answers your first question. Your second question, you're going to have to remind me what it was.
So the second question, the final question here is, of course, as the Woman of Inspiration podcast, what is your definition of a woman of inspiration?
Yeah, and I love this. What a great way to end on the definition of a woman of inspiration, because we each see it differently. I'd say for me, a woman of inspiration is a steward and a guide, someone who leads out front, but also from behind and helps propel others forward to seize those opportunities that we talk about, but expand those boundaries for women and for others while being their best selves. I think a woman of inspiration also repositions some of the perceived limits that we think we have, but really they're chances to break down barriers, realize dreams, and reach higher. And then relentlessly believes that when we commit to supporting and inspiring one another, that we all win and there's always room for more. We don't need to be competing. We don't need to any of that. There's always room for more when we're one team. And there was a stat that I heard, I think it comes from the World Economic Forum, that estimates that we won't attain gender parity for another 99.5 years. Literally almost 100 years, even though we've made so much progress. That's simply not good enough. So if we were to define a woman of inspiration in a few words, a woman of inspiration to me drives meaningful progress towards narrowing this gap as a deeply committed champion.
Well said, and great way to end. And I couldn't agree more with you. Of course, that is why we are so committed to elevating women, bringing on board the companies like EY Canada and also our allies, including our men and our male allies, really to work together to achieve parity. So thank you so much for an amazing interview. If anybody listening is inspired by the conversation that we had and would like to reach out to you, how can they do that, Fatima?
Well, I'd say LinkedIn is a great resource. You'll definitely find me on LinkedIn. It's my most used channel. So that's the best way. And I think you said we'd find a way to share out some of the reading recommendations, which I'm happy to share with you because I've been tracking by month. So we'll have those as well.
Great. Well, I can't wait to share that list. And once again, thank you so much for such an engaging and inspiring conversation. And for those that are listening, this is the Woman of Inspiration podcast. We ask you, don't keep it a secret, share it widely. There is always going to be some women that needs to hear these conversations, and some of our allies as well. So thank you so much, Fatima. Have a great rest of your day. And we look forward to the journey ahead.
Thanks so much, Monica.